that as far as the various congressional hearings, I think there's been 3 so far on the UAP topic. We can't take this 100% serious, what the people giving the testimony are saying, because a lot of them aren't providing any direct evidence, and they're saying things like, oh, we can talk about it in a SKIFF later. And I understand a lot of these SKIFF conversations haven't even happened. Why do you think they might not be being fully honest with us? Or is it just maybe they're misunderstanding something?
No, I think they are probably honest. I mean, they are testifying under oath, and I believe I know many of them personally, and I think actually I spoke with all of them, both in the latest hearing and those that participated in the first hearing, and I spoke with them, and I think they are all serious people that are honest. They are sincere about what they are saying. But the question is whether the things that they describe, represent clear evidence in terms of materials, in terms of relics of spacecraft from an extraterrestrial origin. And for us to figure this out, we have to see that material. We have to see directly the evidence, because they could have been fooled by hearsay. I can imagine that there are retrieval and reverse engineering programs within government. I have no issue imagining that, because these programs are aimed to look for technologies developed by adversarial nations. And so if you imagine a plane, an aircraft crashing, it would be of great use for us to collect materials from there. And, if there's any component that is still operating, that would be even better, because then we can figure out what adversarial nations have, nations like China, Russia, any other nations. So programs to retrieve and reverse engineer any materials collected from crash sites must exist. The question is whether they collected materials that were not human-made. And there are very simple ways to test that, because if those craft or materials came from outside the solar system, they, for example, would have an age or a composition of isotopes that would tell us that they are not from the solar system. That can be easily checked. You can date the age of materials just by measuring the relative abundances of elements that decay radioactively. And if the age turns out to be different from the age of the material that made the solar system, that would be clear indication that they came to visit us from somewhere else. I haven't seen such data. And then if there are any functioning devices, I would like to see them. And just if people mention that someone told them that such things exist, that is not sufficient evidence, because that someone could have fabricated the story. Maybe all of this story is triggered by human-made equipment that was retrieved, and then the intelligence agencies wanted to hide that information, and so they just invented a cover story that it's extraterrestrial in origin, just to confuse and put a stigma on any discussion related to that. So then if you would hear that story, you would think, oh, there is really something unusual there, but there is nothing except for a story. And so to differentiate between a story and whether something really exists, we need to see the evidence directly. We cannot rely just on what people say. And if I were one of these Congress people that organizes these hearings, instead of making a public show where they speak publicly about it, I would investigate it carefully, just trying to see if there is any evidence that is credible without trying to impress the public. It's not really a Hollywood show or a television show where you're just showing that you're curious about this question, which is pretty much what some of these hearings look like, where people would virtue signal, basically show that they care about it, that they're excited by the questions. This is a serious matter. We need to find out if there is anything behind it, and if not, let's move on. For me, it's the question of whether, if the government has such materials or data, it would save me a lot of time because I will not have to study the subject independently.
That's a good point, that some of these Congress people are actually becoming famous for their interest in UAPs.